Does a human being have a soul, or is it just a myth? Such a question was asked to academician Natalia Bekhtereva during one interview. After thinking for a moment, Bekhtereva answered, "It is very difficult to imagine a human being without a soul. But what the soul is, I don't know. There are many formal proofs of its existence and facts that do not fit into my thinking. And what we have now being researched is the result of my continuing to think on this subject." Towards the end of her life, Natalia Bekhtereva was asked questions about things that science was not yet able to explain. For example, whether a person has some subtle substance that continues another life after his death. As a scientist, Natalia Bekhtereva could not leave these questions unanswered, although she always answered them with caution. She noted that although the existence of the subtle substance was not scientifically confirmed, its existence was indicated by the facts that kept Natalia Petrovna in suspense. What were these facts? At the OTT Research Institute in St. Petersburg, they were conducting research into the mental changes that develop during childbirth. They studied women in labor, and it turned out that a certain percentage of women had the phenomenon of seeing their bodies from the outside. However, those who recorded this phenomenon say nothing about the soul. They try to explain it in terms of a mechanism that we have in the brain. It is called body schema. Natalia Bekhtereva told about such a fact. What is the body schema mechanism? According to the academician, a person has a body schema in his brain, and in accordance with it he moves and performs a lot of actions. For example, if a person has partial paralysis of the arm, he may not recognize this problem. It happens because the brain has already formed an idea of how the limb should move. And according to this, now false, representation, the person will act as if everything is fine with his body. Researchers are now trying to relate this to leaving the body, but I don't think it's going to work. We just have to recognize the existence of such a phenomenon, test it in every possible way, and keep thinking about what it is. What can come out of the body and look from the outside? I just didn't look for other definitions, but what could it be if not a soul? Natalia Petrovna pondered. Perhaps for the first time Natalia Bekhtereva was prompted to think about the soul by her meeting with Vonga. The academician went to see her, fueled only by scientific interest. Bekhtereva did not believe the information that the blind old woman could communicate with the souls of the dead. But after her visit to Bulgaria, the academician declared that Vonga had a rare and powerful gift. When the latter announced to Natalia Petrovna during their conversation that her dead mother was now standing next to them, Bekhtereva, accustomed to trusting only facts, for some reason immediately believed these words. Natalia Petrovna said that an ordinary person could see what Vonga saw. She remarked, "It happens to people, sometimes they see more than they need to." This sometimes also happened to Natalia Bekhtereva herself, for example, after the death of her husband. She claimed that she saw her late husband as if he were alive, heard his footsteps. During that period he also came to her in dreams. Once, after falling asleep, Natalia Bekhtereva saw her late husband Ivan Ilyich near the house where they once lived. Ivan Ilyich was angry that Natalia Petrovna had buried him not next to his relatives. In the dream Ivan Ilyich asked, "What did you give to my grandson?" I answered, "A dacha and a Volga." For the dacha he waved at me. And for the Volga, he says, "Well done, that's right." I asked, "How did you come?" "You're dead? We had to let you go." "And where are you?" I asked. "You'll find out later," he said. "You never had time for me. I woke up in horror. I rushed to my husband's portrait. Tell me why you came. The next night I had a dream. Ivan Illich is walking round the flat. He holds the manuscript in his hands and says, 'I didn't have time to publish it, you didn't read it. Try harder now.'" Natalia Bekhtereva saw another dead person in the years of her youth. It was in 1945. At that time, Natalia Petrovna was being looked after by one man. Bekhtereva did not like him. But she did not dare to deprive this man of her companionship. He said that he had lost his favorite woman during the war. Her name was Tasia. And communication with Natalia Petrovna supposedly helped this man to think less about his heavy loss. He showed his Tasia in photographs. She was beautiful. Once in a dream I saw Tasia in some house. She was sitting at a table in a white dress. I greeted her and asked her what her middle name was. "Alexeyevna," she replied. I awoke with a clear feeling that the beloved of my acquaintance was alive. I hurry to him to tell him the news. And I see that the woman from the dream in the same white dress is sitting at the table in his flat. I ask her middle name. "Alexeyevna," she says, as Natalia Bekhtereva described the denouement of this story. When Natalia Petrovna was leaving, Tasia rose from the table to see her guest off. Only now it became clear that Tasia was expecting a child. Natalia Petrovna fled the flat happy. She had managed to uncover the deception. Now she understood why it seemed to her that her acquaintance was not sincere with her. But how can one explain such dreams? Some researchers say that sometimes during a dream a person's soul leaves the body for a while and travels. Natalia Bekhtereva herself believed that dreams can help us look into our future. But the academician did not specify which part of us, consciousness or soul, was looking into it. And does a person have it at all, this very soul? Natalia Petrovna answered this question from the position of two personalities. On the one hand, I am a religious person, strange as it may seem, I know the church dogmas. And when I turn to God, it is easy for me to accept the information that there is a soul, Natalia Petrovna said. But as a scientist I live in another hypostasis. Sometimes I read in the newspapers about the existence of some subtle substance in man, and I realize that this is just a hypothesis that still needs to be confirmed. Today I know of only one study that has sought to discover this substance. Someone Korotkov investigated the presence of the phenomenon of the Kirlian effect in the bodies of dead people. This luminescence was recorded by devices in the first days after death. But the data of one study is not enough, and there are no other similar studies yet. Therefore it is still unstable and so subtle that it is still necessary to get closer and closer to it. And although the luminescence, according to Natalia Bekhtereva, was recorded in the study, it is still not enough to talk about the soul. Because the presence of this luminescence may depend, apparently, on a considerable number of factors that have not yet been taken into account. Natalia Bekhtereva openly stated, although the phenomenon of the Kirlian effect is many years old, we do not know it. Now we are trying to connect it to the known physiological processes. And when we have something, then we will tell you. In one interview in which the phenomenon of the elusive glow was discussed, Bekhtereva was asked to clarify whether the Kirlian effect could be proof that the soul leaves the body on the third day after a person's death. Answering this question, Natalia Petrovna limited herself to the following phrase: The Kirlian luminescence in the body of a deceased person has indeed been recorded, but do not ask me anything more about it.